The morning sun stretched over the pristine lawns of Maplewood Reserve, the kind of neighborhood where every mailbox was painted the same, and even birds seemed to chirp at a polite volume. A dark gray SUV pulled into the cul-de-sac, quiet, deliberate. Behind the wheel, Ethan Cole scanned the surroundings like someone used to noticing what others missed. He wasn't flashy, just composed, crisp shirt, clean haircut, and a calmness that didn't quite fit the place. As movers unloaded boxes, HOA President Karen Whitmore appeared, clipboard in hand, her smile thin and practiced. "We like things just so around here," she said, eyeing Ethan's government-issue license plates with suspicion. Ethan returned a courteous nod. "I'll make sure to fit in," he replied simply. He didn't add that he'd spent decades fitting into places far more dangerous than this. Karen watches him drive into his garage, then whispers into her phone, "He's not on our HOA roster." "And those plates? I'm finding out who he really is." Within a week, Ethan had already noticed her pattern. She was everywhere. Morning jogs past his driveway, late-night trash checks, clipboard always in hand. At first, he thought she was just overzealous. But when she showed up at his door about a mailbox color discrepancy, he realized control wasn't her hobby. It was her identity. Karen peered past him into the house. "You didn't attend the community meet and greet," she said. "That's unusual for newcomers." Ethan smiled politely. "I prefer quiet evenings." Her lips tightened. "That's not how this community works, Mr. Cole." As she walked away, Ethan noticed her jotting something on her clipboard. Then, across the street, two neighbors quietly closed their blinds. The days that followed were filled with small, calculated irritations. A warning letter for a non-standard garden hose. A photo of his car left too close to the sidewalk. A fine for unregistered exterior lighting. Each complaint was signed by Karen Whitmore. Ethan didn't argue. He just paid them and smiled, which only enraged her more. She couldn't stand that he didn't react. That night, Ethan sat at his desk reviewing a case file on his tablet. Not work, but a personal precaution. A note he'd written weeks earlier flashed on screen. "Never draw attention. Never respond in kind." Outside, unseen, Karen's friend whispered as she filmed through a window, "He's always on that laptop. Maybe he's hiding something." By week 3, whispers spread like wildfire. "Government plates," one neighbor said. "He never comes to block parties. I saw a black SUV visit him last night. No plates." Karen fed every rumor, her tone syrupy sweet. "I just worry for our safety. You never know what people bring into our neighborhood." The more she talked, the more the HOA board nodded along. To them, Ethan wasn't quiet. He was mysterious. Across the street, Ethan noticed the shift. Neighbors who once waved now turned away. He sighed, setting down his coffee. So much for peace. That night, as he locked his car, he spotted Karen watching from her upstairs window, phone camera raised. She didn't even pretend to hide it. Saturday morning. Karen arrived unannounced, clipboard ready. "Tone sharp, Mr. Cole," she began. "You failed to file your new resident compliance form, Section 8A. We can issue fines up to $300. Ethan leaned against the doorway, patient. "Karen, HOA guidelines don't override state law. I've read your charter." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me?" "Not at all," he said, "just clarifying jurisdiction." The word jurisdiction lingered. She didn't like it. Maybe didn't even understand it, but it unsettled her. As Ethan closed the door, Karen muttered, "Jurisdiction, huh? Let's see how far yours goes when the cops are knocking on your door." Later that evening, Ethan's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Yates, stopped by with a casserole. She hesitated at his door before whispering, "You're new here." "You should know. Karen's not just bossy. She's dangerous." Ethan looked up. "Dangerous?" "She's called the police on 3 people in the last year. Said they were suspicious. One moved away. One lost his job because of the gossip." He thanked her, setting the casserole down. "That won't be a problem," he said softly. But his calm made her uneasy. She didn't know he was already noting every detail, times, dates, incidents. with the precision of someone trained to see patterns. Across the street, Karen's car idled with headlights off. Inside, she smiled, hitting record on her dash cam. Let's see what the mysterious Mr. Cole does at night. The HOA meeting buzzed with false concern. If he's military or government, Karen said, we deserve to know what he's hiding. Her friend Tina nodded eagerly. Maybe we should, check things out ourselves. Karen grinned, the idea already forming. Oh, I have something better in mind. That night, she browsed online forums and watched a few too many true crime videos about drug setups. She even ordered small sealed bags for props. At least, that's how she justified it. As the packages arrived 2 days later, her hands shook with excitement. If the cops find this in his car, he's done. It was 11:47 p.m. The street was quiet. A motion light flicked on as Karen crept down Ethan's driveway, hoodie pulled tight, a small plastic bag in hand. Her breath fogged in the air as she knelt beside his car door. Just a little under the seat, she whispered, sliding it carefully inside. But she didn't notice the small red light blinking from Ethan's mailbox, a hidden security cam. Inside his darkened living room, a monitor flickered to life. Ethan watched the footage in silence, his face unreadable. Then he whispered, "You shouldn't have done that." The next morning, the neighborhood looked as ordinary as ever. Sprinklers running, dogs barking, garage doors rising in synchronized calm. Ethan walked to his car, coffee in hand, and noticed the faint smudge on the handle. Not visible to most eyes, but his instincts screamed something was off. He paused, scanning the street. Blinds fluttered shut, one after another. He smiled faintly. Too neat, he murmured, sliding into the driver's seat. He turned on his dashboard camera feed and froze on the screen. 2:47 a.m., female, height 5'6", hoodie. Planting something under seat, Ethan leaned back in silence, eyes narrowing. "So it begins," he said, just as his phone buzzed with an unknown number. "This is Officer Daniels. We need to speak with you about a report filed by the HOA." At the HOA clubhouse that morning, Karen was practically glowing. "Officer, thank you for coming so quickly," she said sweetly, waving her manicured hand. "We've had concerns about one of our residents. Suspicious activity. Late-night visitors. Government plates." The officer nodded, jotting notes. "You said you found evidence?" Karen smiled, sliding over her phone, footage she'd staged of herself finding the planted bag under Ethan's car seat. "We're a safe community," she said. "We can't have dangerous people here." As the officer walked out, Karen's friend whispered, "What if he's actually dangerous?" Karen smirked. "Then the police will deal with him before he deals with us." Hours later, there was a firm knock-knock-knock at Ethan's door. 3 officers stood outside, calm but alert. "Mr. Cole," said Officer Daniels, "we received a report and need to ask you to step outside." Ethan complied without resistance, hands visible, movements slow. "Of course. What's this about?" "We received a tip you might have controlled substances in your vehicle." Ethan blinked once, expression perfectly neutral. "You'll find exactly what you're supposed to find," he said quietly. The officer frowned. "Excuse me?" As they approached his car, Ethan pressed a discreet button on his key fob, activating the hidden recording system. "You might want to see everything that happens next," he muttered. Karen stood across the street with her phone, recording every second. 2 neighbors peeked from behind fences. The HOA gossip line was already buzzing. One of the officers opened Ethan's driver door, looked beneath the seat, and froze. There it was, a small sealed bag. "Got something," the officer said. Karen's grin spread ear to ear. "Oh, this is perfect," she whispered. But across the street, Ethan remained calm, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He didn't protest, didn't plead. He simply said, "Make sure your body cams are rolling, gentlemen. You'll want the full context later." Karen's smile faltered for just a second, a flicker of confusion. Why wasn't he afraid? At the station, Ethan sat across from Officer Daniels, hands folded neatly on the table. "Mr. Cole," Daniels said, "you understand this is a serious accusation." Ethan nodded. "Accusation, not evidence. There's a difference. He leaned forward slightly. Now tell me, did the HOA president accompany you during the evidence collection? Daniels hesitated. She was nearby. Nearby, Ethan repeated, voice calm but cutting. Then you'll want to check timestamps. Her call came before your evidence was collected. Odd coincidence, don't you think? Ethan reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out a single card. Daniels's eyes widened as he read it. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Assistant Director Ethan Cole. The tone in the room changed instantly. Daniels straightened, voice tight. Sir, we didn't realize. Ethan held up a hand. Relax. You followed protocol. But someone didn't. He placed his tablet on the table and tapped play. The security footage rolled, Karen, hoodie up, sliding the bag under his seat. Clear as day, silence filled the room. The officer in the corner muttered, That's her. That's the HOA lady. Ethan stood calmly. She wanted attention. Let's make sure she gets plenty. He picked up his phone and dialed. Agent Torres, I need a warrant prepared for a Class C felony. Evidence tampering and false report. Location, Maplewood Reserve. That afternoon, Karen stood outside her house, gossiping with 2 board members, still basking in her imagined victory. I told you he was shady, she bragged. He's probably already in jail. HOA justice always prevails. Her friends laughed until they saw the black SUVs turn onto the street, engines low. Doors opening in perfect synchronization. Men and women in plain suits stepped out. No lights, no sirens, just quiet authority. One agent raised a folder, eyes locked on Karen. Karen Whitmore? She blinked, smile faltering. Yes? Ma'am, you're under arrest for evidence tampering and filing a false police report. Phones came out instantly. Neighbors recorded from porches as Karen tried to protest. No, you don't understand. He's dangerous. He's not who he says he is. Ethan stepped out of his garage, silent, composed. For the first time, she saw him not as a neighbor, but as someone she should have never provoked. You wanted to know who I am, he said, voice even. Now you do. Karen's knees weakened. You set me up. Ethan shook his head. You set yourself up. I just watched. As agents led her away, a reporter shouted from across the street. Director Cole, is it true the FBI is investigating HOA corruption in Maplewood? Ethan paused, then turned, giving the faintest smile. We are now. Karen's screams echoed through Maplewood as the agents guided her into the SUV. Neighbors who once feared her stood frozen. No one rushed to help. Ethan watched quietly from his driveway, arms crossed, the faint hum of authority around him. A young boy whispered to his mother. Mom, is he a cop? The mother replied softly. No, sweetheart. Something bigger. Ethan's phone buzzed. It was his Washington office. Sir, she wasn't acting alone. We found encrypted HOA messages linked to a known fraud group. His eyes narrowed. So this goes beyond her. Inside the FBI field office, Karen sat at the end of a steel table, hands trembling. She'd gone from HOA queen to suspect number 1. Across from her sat Agent Torres, calm and firm. Ms. Whitmore, you filed a false police report. That's obstruction. But if you cooperate, we might go easier. Karen's defiance cracked. He was dangerous. He had those government plates. I thought he was spying on us. Torres leaned forward. You thought wrong. You framed the FBI director. Karen's face drained of color. She whispered, Director? Torres nodded. And you just turned your neighborhood squabble into a federal case. By noon, local news stations ran the headline, HOA president arrested for framing federal agent in drug setup. The footage of Karen's arrest looped endlessly. At the Maplewood Cafe, neighbors stared in silence. One of Karen's former allies muttered, Guess she picked the wrong guy to mess with. Back in his office, Ethan's assistant said, Sir, the mayor's office is asking if you're planning to press full charges or issue a statement. Ethan leaned back, voice quiet but deliberate. We're not done yet. Forensic agents laid out photos on the conference table. Digital receipts, timestamps, fingerprints. Karen's prints were everywhere. The car door, the bag seal, even the call records from her phone minutes before the report. Ethan examined them one by one. She was sloppy, he said. Too eager to be believed. Torres frowned. And that HOA chat server we cracked? Some of her messages talk about targeting residents for profit. Fake fines, illegal lien threats. Ethan looked up. That's racketeering. We're widening the net. He pointed to one name on the list of HOA officers. Start with him, he said. He's next. In holding, Karen's bravado dissolved. Her expensive clothes, once her armor, now made her stick out like an actress in the wrong film. She called her husband. No answer. Called her lawyer. Voicemail. Her reflection in the small mirror showed the truth she'd ignored. Fear, desperation, and guilt. When the guard passed, she asked in a whisper, "Do you know when he's coming?" The guard frowned. "Who?" "Director Cole," he smirked. "Oh, he's coming, but not to talk. To testify." Karen's breath hitched. For the first time, she realized this wasn't about humiliation. It was about justice. And she was on the wrong side of it. The remaining HOA board scrambled to hold an emergency meeting. Papers flew, phones buzzed, and panic spread like wildfire. One member whispered, "They'll come after all of us." Another snapped, "We didn't know what she was doing." But one folder on the table changed everything. A list of illegal fines they'd issued, digitally signed by each member. Outside the clubhouse, two unmarked black sedans parked quietly. Agents stepped out. The board members looked at each other, realizing they were out of time. Ethan returned to Maplewood for the first time since the incident, his arrival drawing quiet awe from the residents. Some nodded respectfully. Others looked ashamed. A reporter approached him on the sidewalk. "Director Cole, are you planning to leave Maplewood after this scandal?" He paused, adjusting his cufflinks. "No, I bought my house to live quietly, not to run from noise." The reporter pressed again. "And what about the HOA?" Ethan's calm expression hardened slightly. "There won't be one. Not after today." Later that evening, Karen was escorted back to the neighborhood for a supervised search of her home. Her hands shook as she stepped out of the van. Neighbors watched from behind fences, silent, cold. Ethan stood on his driveway, a quiet presence amid the chaos. Their eyes met. Karen tried to speak. I just wanted respect." Ethan's voice was steady. "Respect isn't taken. It's earned." He turned to the lead agent. "Finish this," he said, before walking inside, leaving Karen staring at the man she'd tried to destroy, realizing she had only destroyed herself. The sun dipped low as Karen stood trembling beside her house, wrists cuffed, makeup streaked from tears. Ethan approached quietly. No agents, no entourage, just him. "You could have just talked to me," he said softly. Karen's voice broke. "You think you're above us. You don't follow our rules." Ethan tilted his head. "Your rules aren't law, Karen. And the moment you forgot that, this stopped being about property lines." Karen's lips quivered. "So what happens now?" Ethan's eyes held hers for a beat. "Now, we let the truth finish what you started." Mrs. Yates, the elderly woman who had warned Ethan earlier, stepped forward nervously holding a small USB drive. "I didn't mean to spy," she said, "but my camera caught her that night." The footage played. Karen crouched by Ethan's car, pulling gloves off and wiping the door handle with a cloth. The HOA vice president gasped. She really did it." An agent turned toward Ethan. "Sir, this footage seals the case." "There's no denying it now." Ethan nodded. "Then make sure every frame goes to court." Karen's confidence shattered. She turned to the crowd, desperate. "He's lying! He's manipulating everyone!" But nobody moved. No one defended her. Her own friends looked away, ashamed. Ethan remained still, a calm contrast to her chaos. Karen screamed, "You'll regret this!" Just as an agent calmly said, "Ma'am, that's enough." She froze, realizing for the first time she was truly powerless. Under pressure, Karen's words spiraled out of control. "I did what I had to. He didn't belong here. He thinks he's better than us. Every phone camera captured her meltdown. Ethan didn't respond. He simply turned to the officer beside him. You heard that? Yes, sir. On 3 devices. Karen dropped to her knees, sobbing. I just wanted control again. Ethan looked away, a flash of pity crossing his eyes. As agents escorted Karen toward the SUV, the sound of handcuffs clicking echoed across the cul-de-sac. Neighbors whispered quietly, not out of gossip now, but disbelief. Karen's voice was faint. Please, just tell them I'm sorry. Ethan didn't reply. He simply said, Actions speak louder, Karen. Let the system do its job. Karen looked back one last time, at the home she ruled through fear, as the SUV door shut with finality. Within days, the Maplewood HOA board held an emergency vote to dissolve. 3 members resigned immediately. Others quietly hired attorneys. The neighborhood entered a strange peace, a silence where everyone finally felt they could breathe again. Ethan watched from his porch as a for sale sign went up on Karen's property. His phone buzzed. Agent Torres. Sir, we've traced HOA funds to a private account offshore. It's bigger than we thought. National headlines erupted. HOA president arrested for framing FBI director. Hidden network of corruption uncovered. Reporters swarmed Maplewood. Cameras rolled, interviews aired. Ethan gave no press statement. He walked past microphones in silence, refusing to let spectacle define justice. Later that night, he sat alone in his study, the TV muted as the news replayed his name. He turned it off and whispered, Justice doesn't need applause. That night, the sky above Maplewood was clear for the first time in weeks. Ethan poured himself a coffee and stood by the window, looking at the street now free of Karen's control. He took out a small photo of his late wife, smiling, gentle, unbothered by the world's noise. This is what you wanted for me, he murmured. Peace. Outside, a neighbor's child waved shyly at him. Ethan smiled back. His phone vibrated one last time. A message from the bureau. Director Cole, we've found similar HOA setups nationwide. Should we proceed? He stared out the window. Yes, he whispered. Let's clean house. Weeks later, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs as Karen entered in a gray suit, wrists free but her composure gone. Her once commanding posture had wilted into uncertainty. Ethan sat behind the prosecution, expression unreadable. When called to testify, he spoke clearly, calmly, never raising his voice. She didn't just try to ruin a life, he said. She tried to weaponize the system for control. That's something no community should tolerate. Karen's lawyer leaned over and whispered frantically, If you want leniency, this is your last chance to speak. Karen stared ahead in silence, then whispered, I just wanted people to listen. The judge's gavel came down with measured finality. Karen Whitmore, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years for evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and false reporting. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ethan didn't smile. He simply exhaled, a quiet acceptance of balance restored. As Karen was led away, she turned once toward him and mouthed, I'm sorry. Ethan's only response was a subtle nod, not forgiveness, but closure. Back in Maplewood, the neighborhood transformed. Without Karen's control, fences opened, neighbors talked again, children played freely in the cul-de-sac. Mrs. Yates baked cookies and brought them to Ethan's porch. Feels lighter here, she said with a smile. Ethan nodded. Freedom often does. She hesitated before leaving. Will you stay, Mr. Cole? Or will the FBI pull you away again? Ethan looked at the horizon. For now, I think I'll stay. A few weeks later, a new HOA was formed. Smaller, volunteer-run, transparent. They invited Ethan to attend as a resident, not a leader. He politely declined. You don't need control, he said. You just need fairness. The room went quiet. Then someone said softly, That's what we'll build. As Ethan left the meeting, Agent Torres waited outside with a file in hand. Sir, about that nationwide HOA fraud network. Ethan flipped through the file in his office later that night. Identical scams across several states, fake fines, stolen funds, targeted harassment. He called his team. Start an internal operation. Codename, Neighborhood Watch. Torres nodded. So we're taking it national? Ethan's tone was quiet but resolute. We're taking it personal. On his desk, beside the case file, lay a photo of Maplewood, calm, peaceful, unaware that its quiet rebellion had started something much bigger. In a stark white cell, Karen sat with a blank journal open before her. For the first time, there was no audience, no board, no one to impress. She began to write slowly. I wanted control because I felt invisible. But control doesn't make people see you. It just makes them fear you. She looked up at the ceiling, tears forming. Maybe fear was all I ever had, she whispered, and turned the page, starting a new chapter no one would read but her. Weeks passed. The sun rose over Maplewood with soft gold light. Ethan stepped onto his porch with a mug of coffee and watched the mail truck drive by. The same driver Karen used to harass about minor delays. He smiled faintly. The world had a rhythm again, a sense of order, not control. A boy on a bicycle waved. Good morning, Mr. Cole. Ethan waved back. Morning, kid. His phone buzzed with a new message. Operation Neighborhood Watch initiated successfully. First arrests made. He looked out over the quiet street and whispered, one community at a time. That evening, Ethan stood by his window, the same one from that first uneasy night in Maplewood. The world outside was calm. No sirens, no gossip, just peace. He glanced at the framed photo of his late wife again. You were right, he murmured. Peace isn't something you find, it's something you protect. As he turned off the light, his reflection in the glass blended with the night. Calm, certain, steady. The camera pulls back slowly from the quiet house. The glow of a porch light steady against the dark, a symbol of justice kept alive. Not through force, but through quiet resolve.